I am with painter Larry Sherman at Kincaid Gallery in Brockville. Mr. Sherman, thank you for accepting my invitation for the interview on such short notice, and thank you for welcoming me at Kincaid Gallery. You have owned this gallery for how long?
Well, I've been here about 10 years.
And you primarily exhibit your art?
Yes, only.
Only your art, and
Yeah.
you paint, you use oil.
Oil, watercolors, and acrylics.
And what we have behind you right now, can you describe them?
Well, this is a scene on the river. It's called Molly's Gut, sort of thing. A gut is a little narrow inlet in towards the land. And it's a fairly large oil that I've done over a period of time. This is a watercolor that I've done of an old sculptor friend of mine gave me this little thing, and I tried to make it into a composition on my porch, sort of thing, you know. And,
You have very few human figures in your paintings.
well, if you notice, lately I have been putting up. I always like to think that, you know, I keep the art as a one-way conversation. As soon as you put somebody in, you got to justify what they're doing. For example, a man's walking a dog. But what's that guy doing? Getting his mail, maybe, you know what I mean? So you have to kind of justify what the person's doing. In the scene behind you there's a gentleman coming out of a barn in Quebec, and obviously he's been in attending cattle. So that justifies it. But to put somebody in an Algonquin scene up there on the rapids, what's he doing there? You know what I mean? So that's why I keep it kind of like a first person. I like to do the scenery and leave them out. But people are lovely subjects, and I put birds into them, but I don't do close up of the birds. I make them part of the landscape.
I noticed that you have quite a few winter paintings, which is rare. I'm seeing mostly summer paintings.
Well, we live in Canada, and we get 8 months of fall and winter, so we do have, and I do enjoy the snow. I used to paint out a lot on location, and I don't as much anymore, sort of thing, but this one's like up around Lanark, which is in the Perth area, and the old stump fence is what I'm talking about here. When they cleared the land, they made fences from the stumps, or they would have to burn them. This is just a typical Leeds Grenville little country scene. You know, the pines and the undergrowth. This one was a little old lady lived in that house all alone, and she went missing, and they found her in the spring dead. So I sort of did a little picture of that as a tribute to the old soul, and there's a lovely bungalow on there now. It's tore down and sold.
What about the one above?
The same here in this picture. Here is an acrylic, and I was painting it as a scene with again the old farmer had put the stones there as a fence, and all of a sudden I see this thing moving in the background, and it was a deer, and you had to look to find him. He's upper middle there, below that red tree. So rather than have him standing out there in the middle looking at me with all his horns and everything, I put him in as if, you know, I've surprised him and he's looking at me.
And the one above?
That one there is an interesting old one. I've done another picture of that when it had a pile of islands on it. That little island had 5 cottages on it at one time. It's called Higgins Island. And they tore them down because they had to have septic systems, and the old guy wouldn't put them down. The picture that has the cottages on them are over here. If you want to see the same scene, it's if you can follow me. This is an old grist mill that's out on the Rideau. It's called Brewer's Mill, sort of thing, and it's still standing today. And
you have more here?
These are river scenes that I've done in the wintertime. Not many people get out in the island on the winter time, but I walk out sometimes on the ice and And a friend of mine,
So it looks like the snow is melting. Is it spring?
yeah. Well, once those rocks start to get hot, the snow melts. That's what's happening in our Arctic right now, isn't it, eh?
Yes.
The snow is melting and the rocks are heating up in the earth, and you're pretty soon going to have palm trees in the north.
And here you have another winter.
Yeah, this is a little one out back in Spencerville. That silo is a stone silo, and it's as deep in the ground as it is. I was doing it one time, trying to. Our rural heritage is not disappearing; it's gone. So I was doing at one time, little old log buildings and whatnot. They're just disappearing left and right, and they're gone in this area. There's no money in farming, so that's why I do so many of the rural scenes. I love them, that sort of thing. And here's another one.
Your rural scenes are very quiet.
Yes, they are. I try to keep them quiet. I'm kind of I'm not shy. I'd say I'm more aloof. Some painters like to, they go right out in the middle of New York and do a painting in the traffic and everything, whereas I'd be in a doorway somewhere. I try to be, but I go all over. This is in Quebec here, this one here in northern Quebec. And if you look, this is a study of this icicles that is on the picture right behind you. Mm-hmm. There's a man walking with a dog, and the old house is there. And I did a study of the icicles on it. There's one picture here I really love. I'd love to show you if you can. This one here. This is one of. It was quite a while working on it. It's an old antique shop that was long gone.
Is this an attic?
No, it was a store on the main street. Oh. And I've added some of the things are my own subjects I put in. And the lady that I used to live beside when I was on Church Street, this was her baby carriage, and the fella bought it when they had the sale when Margaret died, and I put it into the picture. I fit it in, sort of thing. The train is mine. And
you don't really find these items anymore.
You can't find them anymore. I still collect the ducks and decoys and that kind of thing. And this was that one you were looking at, and I told you that it had 5 little houses on it. They're the cottages. The old fella used to rent the cottages by the season, and he once they had to go to septic system, he tore them all down. And John Matheson, who became a judge and was one of the designers of our Canadian flag, owned the island after Mr. Higginson sold it, and he donated it to Brockville to be used. So I call this Old Days at Higgins Island.
And up here you have...
Those are little prints of my work, of the river, sort of thing. They're nice little prints. Everybody comes, they are in a different price range, and that's Geese at Benson's Rift. That's the Canadian span, first span of the Canadian bridge at the Rift, sort of thing. And then that one's Sparrow Island, sort of thing. It's a nice little thing. The the fella come in. I was on the island. I was doing some painting, and he came in, and you wouldn't believe the whitecaps, and he only had 2 life preservers for the kids and himself. And I said, well, if you stay to 7 o'clock, the water will be as calm as a thing. He thought it was kind of like a prophet because it became very flat, this sort of thing. That's the smallest international bridge, that one. It's too bad the reflections getting in it, sort of thing. The light that's the trouble with glass, sort of thing.
I think that the viewers are getting an image of the paintings.
Yeah, these are all in the Thousand Islands, these ones here, sort of thing.
And you have another one.
This one here was I used to do tempera, and these I would sell to corporations. This is the last one, and it's still in my possession, and my wife owns it. There's 4,000 hours of work in the thing.
You mean the building?
In the art piece. Mm-hmm. I worked on it with small brushes and egg yolk. Mm-hmm. Everything's either a stroke or a dot, so each brick is an individual little thing. So the sky is just full of cross hatching on it, and it takes a lot of time to develop it. And nobody today, unfortunately, there's not much sense in continuing on doing big things like that because corporations don't buy anymore.
Yes.
Sort of thing. So as an artist, you say, well, why spend my time? Yes, I'd love to be painting more big ones like that, but if it's sort of, I don't think I'll ever live to see the realism of that time era come back again. That was the time of great painter, American painter Andrew Wyeth and our Ken Danby, you know what I mean? And we were all running after them and wanting to be able to paint like them, and this is my effort to paint this style. I've done 15 of the size, and this is the only one left. Most of them are sold.
Mr. Sherman, we don't have that much time for the video. We will continue this conversation on our radio interview, and we have only 10 minutes for this video. I invite the viewers to visit your gallery on 20 Kincaid Street in Brockville. Is there another way for the viewers to contact you?
They can contact me through my cell phone, 613-349 5556 or 5655, I'm sorry.
And I also invite them to listen to your radio interview at blogtalkradio.com/multiple arts. And thank you so much for sharing the art with us. Thank you.
God bless you. It's quite a little thing, isn't it? My heavens.
My camera loves you very much.
In myself, a sort of thing, but after having a very serious back operation, I was not a very good candidate for any employment, so I spent 5 months in the hospital, so I started painting then, and I got into some gallery in Ottawa, Den Art gallery, and exhibited there my work, and of course I like realism, and I was tremendously influenced by famous American artist Andrew Wyeth, and of course our Canadian artist Ken Danby, and I took off on that to doing large tempers and whatnot, but with the large size, they don't fit in living rooms and whatnot that well, so I had to come down and start painting in oils and smaller watercolors and that, but I've had many friends that have influenced my career and helped me along the way, and that sort of thing, so I've been very fortunate. At the time that I was young, there was no academic art teaching in school, and so you were left on your own, so I'm basically self-taught, is all I can say.
You are self-taught, however, you have been a teacher of art, from what I understand. Many painters credit you as their teacher and their inspiration.
Well, that's a nice compliment. It simply becomes a means of another form of income for an artist, you know what I mean, that you start trying to pass your talent on or to help other people. I get a lot of people in wanting lessons even now, but it's kind of a hectic time in my life right now to take on classes, but I taught for St. Lawrence College here for a number of years, and I did the rural kind of thing. I was a teaching master there, and I would have 5 classes in 4 days, so that meant I was away from my gallery quite a bit in my studio, and I had to have staff to look after while I was away and whatnot. And then I eventually cut down on the number of trips going, and I decided to hold workshops and art classes in my own studio, which was located in those days in Sherman, which the Sherman family was wonderful to me and gave me a nice location off the main street area in an old building that was sort of fit in with the artistic thing, and I had classes there and conducted them, and quite a few of the local people would come to my class, and I even had a night class because most of the women would come in the daytime and the men would come at nighttime, and I'd teach them, sort of thing, and several of them went on to do quite well.
You are a painter of rural scapes. You very much love rural areas, and what I love about your paintings is that you do not embellish them. You really are a realistic painting. You show the landscape as it is, not try to beautify it, and you can actually feel you're there. The light is natural. Everything you see is natural. You see the broken branches, broken fences, older roofs. You really are a very realistic painter. What draws you to rural areas so much?
Well, I was, years ago, read an article that in the States that the farms were disappearing, and this brought my awareness to it. It was an article in a little magazine called The Vermonter, and they were talking about how quickly the old rail fences and that were disappearing, and this sort of caught a thing with me, and I could see the same thing happening here, and it sure is a fact that I drive all over the rural roads, back roads, side roads, closed concessions, and everything else, and it's getting harder and harder to find farms because they've been given up. So that was my main thing, that I saw it as a disappearing way of life. And at the time, you had other artists that were painting the mills and all the nice little things, but they were overlooking the little old drive sheds and regular barns and stump fences and rail fences and that sort of thing. So I thought that was it. And today there's considerably less farmers, and in the future there'll be even fewer and larger corporate farms, is the way I see it. So this was my way of leaving a legacy to the hard work and toil of the unforgotten early settlers that hewed the land right out of the forest and are our source of providing us with our daily bread.
Mm-hmm. I also noticed that you are a winter lover, and most painters that I meet actually love warmer climates, warm weather, spring. They love the colors of summer, spring, fall. However, you are not bored with working with the white and the very many shades of white of winter. What makes you love winter so much?
Well, it's always been it's a country of the winter season, that's for sure. And I used to do a lot of skiing and snowshoeing as a kid, and hiking and going around to Blue Mountain and that sort of stuff. And usually it was always done in the winter time or whatnot, sort of thing. It just seems to have an appeal to me. I don't know, you know what I mean? It's people do recognize it as soon as they come in here. One of them will say, "My goodness, you do like snow," and we do have 8 months of winter here in this country. So that's the reason I paint so much. Also is the skies are usually grayish and darkish, and that in the wintertime. And maybe I'm more like a mood painter. Maybe that's the thing, and maybe it fits with my mood or something, it's a somberness or something.
I know that as a painter, you experience a wide range of emotions, and these emotions are translated into art. When I look at your art, you seem to be very careful with the way you handle your emotions. You really are a closet person. Although you talk, you're very communicative. You talk a lot, but you do not show really your emotions. What would you say in your art show your emotions the most?
Well, I guess it's funny. I've never been analyzed that way, but it's probably the loneliness of the career coming out in the work sort of thing. It's a solitary career. You do it alone. I have maintained a gallery outside of my own home for quite a number of years, and I go to work every day just as any other person does. I goes to work, and I come to my thing, and I got my tools all ready to paint. But the part of the thing is that you try to put your feelings into it, and I think that's what maybe comes across. Now, the loneliness of the wintertime, but it has a beautiful beauty to me in it. In a dead tree, I can see beauty, you know what I mean? And I've painted many dead trees, sort of thing. So it's part of being a solitary person, I think, is reflects in your art, sort of thing. If I was in probably Arizona or something, I'd be painting hot and, painting all the buttes and everything down there with bright, warm colors. But I live in Canada, so that's the way I go. I try to do fall colors, sort of thing, and some summer. But I let the sky usually sets the mood for me, and they usually are never robin egg blue skies in my pictures.
For the next few minutes, I would like to talk about the 1,000 islands. The 1,000 islands, to me, they are a natural wonder. You don't really find them, in other places in the world. And you are a painter who spent quite a bit of time and canvas and paints on bringing them to life in your own art. You're very lucky to live here and witness the 1,000 islands, and you see them. How do you feel when you paint them? And are there places, there's so many, are there islands that you like most?
Well, again, another question. I see the same thing happening in the islands. They were, when I grew up, were beautiful, and the boats would ply the river, and we would swim in the river, and you would rent a skiff and go out to one of the islands and spend the Sunday there, and pack. Folks would pack a lunch and row back, and that. Now today you have boats. You can be one end of the river to the other end in no time, and also the unbelievable homes that they're building. And I see again the same thing, the disappearing of those old shacks that used to be on an island. You can't have that because you got to have proper septic systems and everything today on them. And so the Brockville group here, it's called Brockville, and the Brockville group is the one that I really spend the most time in because of accessibility. I don't have a boat anymore. I used to have a big inboard and whatnot. I could get out more, so I depend upon friends. And they usually put you in the boat and you whip up to the Thousand Island Bridge and whip back, so it doesn't leave you much time to do anything. Whereas when I was able to canoe and whatnot, I would canoe out to the islands and spend time walking around them and doing some sketching and doing some photographing and whatnot. So I see them as the same way as the farmers, that there is a change, and change is necessary. I think Mark Twain, said everybody likes progress, but nobody likes change, and that's one thing you can't stop is change.
You told me that you like your paintings to be quiet. You're a man who loves silence, which really contrasts to how much you speak and to how much you communicate and how much you talk. You really are a person very gregarious, but the truth is, you said, I'm a loner. And I really am very quiet inside, and I like quiet places. At the same time, when you decide to populate your paintings and bring people, usually it's just like one person, not too many, you don't like the crowds. And when you bring animals, also it's pretty much like one deer or a few birds, and they are never together. So what is this inclination for a bit of a selection, and you really don't want these places too animated?
Well, again, it's difficult to explain. Some of these things may be deeper than I can understand. But the thing that I say is, first of all, I've tried to make my paintings a first-person conversation. Once I put a person into that picture, I had to just, what is he doing there? He's walking up a hill. What's he doing going up a hill? So you got that question, whereas if I just paint the hill, you look at the hill and see the hill. So I know that you put people in pictures for scale. That's all right, everybody should know the size of a tree and a fence and things like that. So the window is a certain size. So I don't have the problems of, say, David making a historic painting and putting a pile of people in it. It provides scale. But the other part is, I'm not an outgoing painter. I'm not shy. I'm more aloof than anything. In other words, I can't take a canvas and set up in the middle of King Street here and paint the courthouse. I would be back in a doorway somewhere. Not that I'm ashamed of what I do, is that I just think, you know what I mean, I can't walk into the office of the executive of Exxon Corporation. I'm in my office when I'm painting. So when you get out in the middle of the road, you have 100 people, and they're all asking, do you know my niece in Toronto? You know what I mean? Well, what do I say? She's a painter, and how would I possibly know her? So I try to be as private as possible, even when I travel. Now, I do travel. I used to travel a lot with people, and they'd go off their way and find their subject matter, and I'd find mine, and then, that's the thing. But leaving people out is not. I admire the people that can put them into a situation, and you had the wonderful Bateman artist that rendered the critters. I'm not for drawing every hair on an animal and see its antlers. I've never seen a deer that long, or anytime I go and feed the little nuthatches and chickadees, I can't even get their beak drawn and wait the time around. So in other words, you'd have to have something stable there to be able to draw that detail. So I just show them in a thing, and you can recognize that they're there.
You paint in watercolor, oils, and acrylic. Is there a modality? Do you prefer oils over watercolor or watercolor over acrylic?
Well, since I've, don't have I'm not teaching in that anymore. I do spend a little bit more time with oils, is that it's nice you can leave them and come back to them. With watercolors, if you make a mistake, you start over. So I think I do have a spontaneity of acrylics. I used to paint in egg tempera. That's when I did the large panels and whatnot, and very, very detailed. It was actually photorealism or high realism, whatever you want to call it. But the market has changed so greatly that, there's not much, who would buy these large ones to put in that I put sometimes up to 4,000 hours in a piece. So you do something that you can do in 2 weeks or a month, and your subject. But that's the difference today in the market. Dictates what you're going to paint. But I do love water-based, any water-based medium. I'd have to say my first love is watercolor, but I'm still trying to learn how to paint watercolor. It's a hard medium.
What is your favorite color? Do you have one? Or it is very hard by looking at your painting, and I found the same thing with Pamela McKinnon, to find the favorite color. Do you have a favorite color?
Well, it would be any of the earth colors. Again, that goes back to the mundane. That would be the siennas and the ochres and the raw siennas. I love them, but I love what they do when they mix with various blues and blacks. So I got 16 of them, and I love all of them. Those are the ones. Every painting I paint comes from those 16 colors. I don't use all 16 in one painting. I try to keep it down to 3 to 4. I used to do a little bit of monochromatic painting, but I don't do it anymore. But when I lay the work in, sometimes I'll lay in just in one color, and I'm almost tempted sometimes just to leave that as a painting.
I would like to take you back to a little statement that you made earlier. You said, "I like dead trees," and I noticed that you are a painter who seems to not be afraid to represent death in their art, whether it is a dead tree or dead leaves or the house of a dead woman. Remember? What is death for you, and what is the meaning of death in your painting?
Well, you're getting pretty deep there with it. There is, I can see a regeneration that's almost like sounding like a Buddhist or something. The tree, it may have been hit by lightning and a branch falls off and decay starts coming in, and little ants and insects start chewing it, and it presents different colors, different shapes, different sizes, and I see that. Death is not the end. If we believe in our Christian fundamental, life goes on. So if you go into other religions, they believe that it's a reincarnation. So I can see that a tree or something like that can reform. The house was a sad story. The woman was there alone, and she was left. The neighbors tried to help her and whatnot, but I sort of did it as a tribute to her because she would always be right across from where I used to teach in the rural area there, and she was hit by a car, I guess, and they didn't find her till spring, so they tore the house down and rebuilt a beautiful bungalow. So I painted her house in sort of a setting sun and with snow around it and dead trees around it, so kind of like a continuing on with life, you know what I mean?
I also noticed in some of your painting a certain nostalgia of past, but also an appreciation of the past. You have a painting of a shop of antiques, and you're showing several antiques in the window. Are these objects? Is this painting a tribute to a past era?
Yes, and I think the nostalgia, you hit the key right there, is that, my folks have lived here all their lives in Brockville, and they were steeped in, my dad, was a great historian, knew Brockville inside out, and has passed that part on to me about being interested in past families and sort of thing, and but the little old shop was interesting again. It was a guy who was a junk collector, and he just filled his window up. He owned this store, and he happened to bought a neighbor of mine had passed away, and he bought her carriage, which was one with an old parasol, and he left it at my place for a couple of days until he came back and pick it up, and I included it in his junk shop window and added some other little things. But I love the old settings. I'm especially like getting into an old barn or something like that and seeing how the farmer reuses, it takes a storm window off the house and puts it sideways into a barn window, It's still got all the use, or, he puts something up. I was up in Sault Ste. Marie, this little old fella came in and he knew exactly where something that he put in the barn was 10 years ago, and found it and took it out, and it had another use instead of throwing it out. I guess you'd say they're utilitarian, and I love to find that in things, and I think that's what I'm trying to show is our heritage and our usefulness of things that people discard.
You started painting mid-century, mid-20th century, around that time. Now it's 2012, and it's a different time, a different century. What's it like to be a painter now in the 21st century compared to being a painter in the second half of the 20th century?
Well, I think if you read any art history, you'll see that most artists have waxed and waned, and some have been fortunate to wax more than they wane, and I've been truly blessed and really fortunate that I've been able to make a career for the last 40 years of just selling paintings and, part-time doing teaching and whatnot, but it was much easier. There was more what I would call discretionary income in those days. Also, there was a lot more of my friends around than there are today. Again, that's time speaking to us, and I'll have my time, and it will come and go as well. And there's always new people, there's always new ideas, and that's good, sort of thing, pushing it along. But I'm stuck in my genre, and, how do you change a horse in the middle of a stream? You can't, so I keep painting the way I always painted, trying to say what I'm trying to say in my own humble way.
To the listeners, Larry Sherman will be launching his new website soon, and the website is LarrySherman.com. Larry M. Sherman. LarryMSherman.com. His email is LarryMSherman@rogers.com, and your phone number is 613.
613-349-5655.
We have a few more minutes, and I wanted to ask you about your wife. Would you like to talk a bit about your wife? Sure.
I just wanted to say I've been very fortunate to have a supportive wife, and it's really essential to an artist. She's been a good soul.
What is her name?
Suzanne.
Larry, Mr. Sherman, he is a little bit emotional. He loves his wife very much. Do you have a few more words for our listeners, especially those young artists who know what the competition is and how it can get vicious sometimes, even in this, this realm of beauty? Do you have a few words for them?
Yeah, it's hard for young people. It's a very, very difficult career. I say don't give up. Keep going. And keep on your way. I know there'll be plenty of things come in your way to change your idea, but if you stick to it, you will. Times change. Tough times come and go. Tough people last. So you have to stick to it, miss. That's one thing you can't teach, is you have to stick to. And there's so much competition out there today, it's hard. So I would say, learn to draw behind under every good painting is a better drawing. So learn your skills. You know what I mean? Most people want to just start painting it, take 4 or 5 lessons, and then they start selling. I would recommend you to have a thing, get out and stick to your guns with your subject matter. The times are a little different than normal with the new printing processes and everything else. Don't put the commercial part of your work before the actual work itself. And that's what I find is the big thing today, that anybody that does 4 or 5 paintings is immediately into prints, sort of thing. That's it.
Mr. Sherman, thank you very much for being with us today, and thank you to all listeners for being with us. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Elena. That's wonderful.
Bye-bye, everyone.
That was truly wonderful. You asked some damn difficult questions.
Oh, don't worry, you had good answers.